Who better to analyze the antics of the mayor of Toronto and everything else that's wrong with politics in North America than my next guest, Bill Maher, host of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher. Friday nights, you can see Bill live New Year's Eve at Bladesdell Concert Hall in Honolulu and January 1st at Maui Arts and Cultural Center. Bill, it is hard to pick now my very favorite Mayor Ford soundbite. The thing about every one of them is, when they begin, you don't have any idea where he's going.
He should stick with the crack and not with the analogies. I don't know. First of all, that's so unfair to Kuwait, which is not as big as Rob Ford. And why, of all the historical events, did he pick that one? I can't figure that out. But I have to say, Lawrence, as much as you'll say I'm just being a contrarian for the sake of it, he is kind of growing on me. And I would never recommend being a crack addict or anything like that. And I've never smoked crack. I've done most drugs, but never did that one. So I've heard it's quite addictive, probably not good for you. But there is something refreshing about a politician, for once, pointing his finger back at his accusers and saying, really, you never did anything? Because there is an awful lot of hypocrisy, self-righteousness that makes me even sicker than what he does.
Well, I got to tell you, Bill, he's already grown on me right from the start, and it is that refreshing thing of you have no idea what he's going to say, and he has these breathtaking moments of honesty when you ask him things like, you know, have you bought drugs in the last year or so? And also, Bill, I think I have this feeling, hey, it's Toronto. What could go wrong? You know, I mean, don't you feel like there just isn't that much at stake with who the mayor of Toronto is?
First of all, you know, Canada has always had the reputation of being boring. Finally, someone who is not boring. You know, we have that commercial here for the beer commercial, the most interesting man in the world. I think Rob Ford should do the most interesting Canadian in the world. Yeah, the toilet hugs him. Yeah, and I may not always smoke crack. Sorry,
you know, and I mean this as a compliment to Toronto, meaning I think our image is Canada is a very well-run country, and the provinces are well-run. The governing there is smooth, and you know, we never read any big problems about, you know, the terrors of life in Toronto and what's going wrong, and that just might mean that we don't have much coverage of it. But working from that notion, which may be naive, of you know, it's Toronto, everything looks smooth to me up there. Rob Ford presents us with nothing but entertainment.
Rob and his brother. Have you noticed that his brother's name?
His brother, Doug.
Doug. Yeah. And do you remember on SCTV when they played Bob and Doug?
Yeah.
They're actually posers named Bob and Doug. And I look at them as kind of the Kennedy brothers of Canada, if the Kennedy brothers were blackout drunks the size of porta potties. And one is just as out there as the next. They are in lockstep in that. You have to say that. You cannot get away between the Ford brothers. Well,
it was Doug in the city council who pointed his finger at every one of the members and said, have you ever used marijuana? Have you ever used marijuana? And for some strange reason, he got no answer in that whole line. Bill, Sarah Palin... Go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to go to Sarah Palin. I wanted to listen to what she had to say about the war on Christmas.
What I'm saying is we need to protect the heart of Christmas and not let an angry atheist armed with an attorney, Scrooge, tell us that we can't celebrate traditional faith in America.
Bill, I think she's talking about your attorney, Scrooge, who's trying to shut down Christmas in America. I just want to tell you, Bill, you're losing here in Rockefeller Center. The tree is already up. They haven't lit it yet, but you're making no progress here.
Well, and I have said many times, I am one of the biggest fans of Christmas in America, and I think people have atheists all wrong. We don't care. That's the thing. They have this idea that we're out there marching in the streets, and there are a few atheists who organize, which I'm also against. The great thing about atheism is that we don't have to organize, we don't have to meet, and on Sunday we can worship the NFL football package that I have. I mean, what I love about Christmas is the tradition. I don't want to change the word even. I remember Christmas. Christmas to me is my family memories. It's, you know, I used to go to church back then. It's my mother, my father, my sister. It's Robert Goulet records. It's sitting around the tree. I love it all, but it's a national holiday. It has nothing to do with religion, and no one is trying to take that away. And it's so funny to me the way these Christians are always standing up in a 80% Christian country and feeling so persecuted. We will celebrate Christmas. You know, there's a guy who stood up in the House of Representatives the other day talking about this is a Christian nation. Take that, complete Christian body. Persecution complex.
Let's talk about what's going on in the Republican Party. We've been doing some coverage of it this week. They have these internal battles going on. And finally, the so-called establishment side of the Republican Party seems to be rising up against the Tea Party, which has cost them a bunch of Senate elections in the past couple of years. And they're having some success with it. It took them a while, though, to figure out that the Republican establishment was seriously threatened by the Tea Party. But it looks like they don't want to see any more Christine O'Donnells, which, Bill, you know, could hurt your monologues.
Yeah. Well, I felt I created her, so I deserve to have her. Yeah. But actually, you know, I think this is a little overblown that there's this giant rift between the Tea Party and the what I call the potty-trained Republicans, because there was a poll out recently, and I think the question that was asked was, is the Tea Party has too much influence on the Republican Party, not enough influence, or just the right amount? 41% of Republicans said the Tea Party had too little influence, 32% just the right amount. So that's 73% of Republicans who are just fine with the Tea Party. I think the people who are upset are the old Wall Street one-percenters. These are the people who are worried about the Tea Party because, after all, if the debt ceiling debacle had gone their way, they probably would have actually lost a lot of money. So this Tea Party Frankenstein's monster they created, now they're worried because it could lose them money, which is what they care most about. So the Tea Party was fine, and now it's starting to, you know, throw little girls into the lake. They have to rein them in. But I think the other thing you have to know about the Tea Party is they keep portraying themselves as outsiders. They're not outsiders. Now they are insiders. They are controlling the works. They're at least gumming up the works in Congress. And they're making former insiders look good. Tom DeLay looks good next to these people.
Yeah, he does. Let's talk about the guy who Wall Street will want to run for president, Chris Christie, who has been saying some things that put him definitely in contradiction with the Tea Party. He actually said something about how when you're elected to run government, you really should run government instead of shut it down. Let's listen to that.
You can rail against Obamacare and you can be opposed to it, as I've been in New Jersey, but not then subscribe to the notion that your job in running the government is to close it. Your job in running the government is to run it, and run it effectively and efficiently.
Bill, when he says that on a Republican presidential debate stage with Ted Cruz standing up there and Rand Paul, does Chris Christie get applause when he says that to a Republican audience?
Absolutely not, but he won't say it at a debate. And that's why Chris Christie is an excellent politician. I, of course, agree with what he's saying. I never understood why people who hate government go into government. That's why I am not a priest. But, you know, for those people who say that Chris Christie is not going to work down in Texas or the South, I disagree. I think Chris Christie has positioned himself perfectly, because what I hear from the left is, oh, you don't realize how conservative Chris Christie really is. He's not really a moderate. And what I hear from the right is the exact opposite. And when both sides think the other side, he's a little close to the other side, I think that's the sweet spot for a politician. Chris Christie does every once in a while say something that mollifies the moderates and the independents and even some Democrats. I'm sure that's how he got elected in my home state, which is, after all, a blue state. And he also is actually a very conservative politician who is perfectly capable of throwing the red meat to the Tea Party. And he will do a little of each until he gets the nomination and maybe the White House.
Bill Maher, that's going to be the last word.